right, this is Bill Bronson and my trusty sidekick, Jeffrey Cooperstein.
Hello.
And this is Squirrel Marketing. Well, so today, I was listening to our last 3 episodes, and I wanted to say I didn't listen to them initially. I was too apprentive.
Yeah,
I was like,
that's
I don't
how
want
I
to.
am too. I hate listening to myself.
Well, I really enjoyed listening to this one because in order to prepare for this one, I listened to the last one.
Yeah.
So we could kind of, with people who might listen in succession, we're going on some kind of track.
Yeah, exactly.
Or at least some kind of thought process.
With some squirrels in between.
With some squirrels, like, the haunted house. But, Squirrel. Todd bought this place way out in Sanger?
Yeah, that's up north.
Sanger. Terrell? Hell, I don't know. It's called Haunted Mansion or something. It's past Dallas to the east.
Yeah, Terrell. That's Terrell.
Terrell. And anyway, so he bought that, and that is a traditional haunted house on like 20 acres. And they have the woods and all that. It's all traditional. But cutting edge is not. It's like a nightclub.
Interesting.
Anyway, so I was listening to our other one, and it was talking about action planning, and remember the acronym SMART?
Yep.
Specific, reasonable, actionable. Anyway, so I started thinking about the next little piece of an action plan, which is strategic planning. So strategic planning is part of the action plan, and it's kind of where you think more strategically about your role in this whole thing called business. What's your role? What are you going to offer?
The individual's or the business's role?
The business's role in what they want to offer the world. And this is something that I was going to talk about anyway, which is competitive advantage. So when we talk about strategic planning, you also need to consider your competitive advantage. And for instance, Walmart, okay? When Walmart got involved, there were already some things going on. For instance, Kmart and Sears. And Walmart didn't want to really compete with them. So first of all, their strategy, their strategic planning gave them the idea to focus on small town America. So they would only focus on, they only had stores in towns with under 5,000 people in them. And because Sam Walton was a tightwad, and so much so that his executives, when they came in town, would stay 2 or more to a room and stay at budget motels. And they had to drive places. He wouldn't fly them around.
Really?
So even regional managers who would go, and still, I guess, up until the kids took over, the regional managers wouldn't fly. They would have to drive to the stores to look at the stores. He would fly over in his little plane or whatever and look at the parking lots.
He'd fly himself?
Yes. He didn't even have a freaking driver. He would drive his old pickup and just go to the stores and look at the parking lots and see if they were full or not. And,
That's crazy.
very frugal. And that's how he was able to make it, is that carried over into every aspect of Walmart. Every aspect was cheap. Everything was done on as if he didn't have a dime to his name. And it was a shoestring budget.
And now look at what Walmart is.
Well, they were able to do a couple things with that. First of all, he was able to make it successful in markets with under 5,000 people, which gave them a foothold and allowed them to grow, not large, but solid. So they didn't grow very fast like that, but they established name recognition in the rural America, arguably is America, because that's the backbone. Those are the people who grow the corn that you eat, and they fix the cars that you drive, and they build the trucks that deliver the food. So I mean, it really is. So anyway, Walmart gained a foothold, and they had two things. One was they could make it in a market that was smaller than the other guys could make it in, because I think Kmart, their minimum requirement to go into an area was, 25,000 or something. Actually, we'll squirrel a little bit. Sam Walton's wife refused to live in a town with more than 5 or 10,000 people.
She wouldn't live in a town with.
She would not. So they had to focus on that because she refused to live. So if they moved by a store or something, she wouldn't go to a town bigger than that.
Oh, wow. I wonder what changed.
Well, I don't know.
The money.
Money, probably. But
the thing with Walmart, too, is, like, yeah, it's a great place. You can get every single thing you would ever need at Walmart, but it destroyed small businesses.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you're right. And the department store was the beginning of that, because before then, it was a clothing store. It was a sporting goods store. It was a grocery store. And now they're mixing it all together, and you can't count on anything. And that's the same thing I don't like about trying to integrate everything. Like neighborhoods. Why are you going to forcibly put one group of people in a neighborhood that was created without them?
Yeah.
For instance, I don't know, like Little China or whatever, or Little Mexico, or all these places where the town, it is the culture. These people came from a country, and they recreated their country here as a little miniature pocket, and that should be celebrated. You should be able to go there and experience that person's culture and appreciate their culture. Why you want to turn them into a bunch of just mishmash, I don't understand. That's goofy. People are different, and we should celebrate differences, not use them as a punchline.
Agreed. Absolutely.
But anyway, Walmart, they had two things. One was, like I said, operating and being successful in a small town. But they were the first to open up innovation in their supply chain. So Walmart, they had, I think they got their first big warehouse. And for a tightwad like Sam, I mean, $1 million for a warehouse had to be a hard check to write. But innovation was necessary. So they innovated to the point where their business model, their supply chain management, they would have trucks come in to bring the goods for stores on one side, and they would immediately be unloaded and loaded back onto other trucks going to stores. So they innovated this process to where nothing ever stayed in the warehouse.
Right.
It was just a place to exchange. So it was a depot. It was not a warehouse, really. I mean, so...
And he paid $1 million to not even have anything in the warehouse.
Exactly. So but they got very, very good at making sure that nothing was stale. Nothing ever stayed long enough for the new model to come out. It was always pushed out. And to study this is kind of the precursor to Amazon, because Amazon has arguably the most advanced supply chain ever.
They're ridiculous, man. You can get any item in the world you want at your door less than 24 hours.
Well, their warehousing, they also innovated the shared warehousing model, where if they don't have a warehouse in the area, they'll
contract with someone.
Exactly. Yeah. And I don't know how the computer system tracks all that crap, because
from my very, very brief experience in customer service, it's called a drop ship or whatever, and they have a contract with that warehouse. So when someone puts in an order, if it's a drop ship item, it'll go directly to that warehouse and they'll fulfill it.
Yeah, and as a side note, on my way to work, I passed this area where they're building these enormous warehouse depots. They're enormous, and it's right there where Amazon and FedEx and all these people are.
Yeah, right over there in Coppell, Carrollton.
Well, no, this is over
Right.
here, but they're probably doing it everywhere.
Oh, okay.
And so I found out that these businesses, there are guys who will they'll buy land and build a warehouse, and they don't have a business.
Yeah.
They'll buy it, build a warehouse, and then contract with Amazon.
Yep.
That's their business model.
And it works.
All they do is facilitate. And so, yeah, it's crazy. But so, back to strategic planning and innovation. You know, you can take a lesson from Walmart because they needed to be different. And so, while they had a similar business model, they were a similar type of a place to Kmart, let's say. But they innovated a little bit to the point where they had a competitive advantage, and they focused on a different part of the market initially, which helped them gain that foothold. So in business, you don't want to necessarily take your competition on head to head, especially if you're the new one. You could probably take someone on head to head if they're the new one, and you have the foothold.
You want to be different than your.
You want to be different in some way. Something needs to be different. For instance, you don't want to enter the market for, let's say, a tree service. You don't want to enter the market for a tree service that's known for being the low-cost leader and then compete with them on cost. It's not. You want to enter the market and you want to compete with a low-cost leader by, I don't know, you wash all the cars that are in the driveway before you leave. I don't know, something.
I mean, so
be different.
If you're trying to compete with a low-cost leader, would providing a better quality service at maybe a higher price point, would that be a way to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the go-to way.
Yeah.
Because you're either going to compete on cost or you're going to compete on quality.
Yeah.
Or you're going to compete on speed. So you might be more expensive, but you're really fast. Or you might be expensive, but you're really fast and do great quality work. So I have this triangle that it was a joke. It's like a punchline in my office that shows it's a triangle, and on the 3 points it says good, fast, and cheap on the 3 different points of the triangle. So good, fast, and cheap. And the point is you can have 2. Pick the 2. Because if it's good and fast, it ain't going to be cheap.
Right.
If it's good and cheap, it ain't going to be fast.
Right.
You can't do all 3.
What if it's cheap and fast?
If it's cheap and fast,
It ain't gonna be good.
it's not going to be good. The quality's not going to be there. It just won't.
Yeah.
And so, like the dollar store crap, it's not going to. It's cheap. It's fast. It's not going to last. It's not going to last long.
Not great.
What sucks is when it's expensive and slow, and then you notice it's got bad quality too because the owners are taking all the profit. They're not putting it into the product.
Yeah.
But anyway, so you have to pick something that's unique, and you can get really crazy with unique. It doesn't have to be.
There's endless possibilities. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be the go-to, like you were saying, better quality. It can be something off the wall, like you wash all their cars before you leave. And I mentioned that because squirrel marketing is also a metaphor for your business. Because when you're marketing for your business, you can take your marketing plan off on a crazy tangent. And sometimes that's all it takes for you to have a competitive advantage, is to be different. Be known for something off the wall.
Yeah.
So you can have a squirrel in your own marketing, and that's perfectly okay. I remember when I was a kid, there was a rug service or carpet cleaning service, and while they were cleaning your carpets, they would mow your yard. I mean, it was kind of weird,
Yeah, I mean,
but they were trying.
right, yeah, and I guess
And they
that's
didn't do it for long, I don't think.
right, but I guess that's a way to get your name out there and show that you're serious in this what's it called sector.
Yeah, well, I think it was a small deal. It wasn't the big name deal, but I think maybe they involved their kids in the business, and they got their kids raking leaves and mowing yards, and they said, "Okay, tell you what, if you let us clean your whole house, we'll do your yard for free." And so the kids would come in and do the yard, and then the business would pay them
Right.
for being a partner in the deal,
Yeah.
helping them with their gimmick. And that's what it is. It's a gimmick. So you can have a gimmick, but you need to also have a core plan that's a little bit different than your competition. And so, like, let's talk about, let's go to the next segment of this, really, because I think we've beat this one to death. Fujitsu, I love case studies, first of all, because if you can analyze the past, you can learn from it, and then that shapes your future. If you don't study the past, you could repeat the past, and sometimes that's not good, right? But Fujitsu was pretty interesting. They developed the first computer in Japan that people could use, and that's an old company from like the 30s. And so Fujitsu, the Japanese electronics company, they were the first to innovate their business model and involve other stakeholders in their planning. So, okay, so let me explain that. Your company, let's say you are your company. You have everything to say about your strategic plan. And you don't involve anybody else in it because it's your company and you do what you want, right? Well, that's the traditional way of doing it. And it was that way for a long, long time. It, in fact, was almost the downfall of Harley Davidson. When Honda came in with their little 50cc motorcycle, they almost put Harley Davidson out of business. And there's reasons why they didn't. Because Harley was an icon and a symbol of American individualism and everything. But so Fujitsu involved their customers, their distributors, their suppliers, their all their supply chain participants, their employees, the general public. They involved all stakeholders in their strategic plan.
Which is probably a good idea.
And for two things. First of all, in Japanese society, it never happens.
Yeah.
Or it didn't. So it was completely innovative in that, geographically. But it was also completely innovative in the world because the companies felt like they knew everything, the consumer didn't know anything. They only wanted the consumer's business to buy their product. They didn't want them affecting their business. They didn't want change, nothing. Well, Fujitsu kind of flipped all that around and innovated, and now it shapes every part of that company. They have these think tanks, these what do you call it? What do you call that? You have lecture and then you have lab. So these labs. So Fujitsu now has all these labs where people can come in and innovate and brainstorm and think off the wall and shape the company's future.
That's good,
continually.
That's a great idea.
Well, now all the big companies do it. Apple does it. IBM does it. IBM almost went under.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bill Gates.
Shout out Bill Gates.
But hashtag evil. But anyway, so yeah, Fujitsu is awesome with that. Harley Davidson, by the way, just to finish that thought, Harley Davidson, they thought they knew everything, and they didn't worry about Honda. They didn't think Honda was anything, had any like bearing on their future.
Now, when you're trying to build a business like this, is it important to know your competitor, know what they do, know what they don't do well?
Well, that goes back to the beginning of times as spies.
Yeah.
You've got to know your competitor. You've got to know. It's the whole thing with the CIA.
Yeah, I mean, seriously.
And the KGB.
And it's the same thing in business, really, right?
Yeah, but you have two ways to go.
Maybe not at that level, not having it as an inside job.
Right, no silencers, but you don't need silencers. But I would say that you've got to study your competition in order to know what you want to do and not do with your future of your company. You got to know what's going on. You can't build a business in a vacuum, And so if you're kind of in the dark and you don't want to bother with that, you could go down a road based on your own brain, and you might find that road is the wrong one because this innovation over here. So you've got to know your competition, but it just depends on what you're doing. If you're a dry cleaners, it may not be as big a deal unless they come out with some new technology that your competitor starts using and you have no clue.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that the point of this episode really is you've got to spend the time and money and energy, and you've got to involve stakeholders, all stakeholders, and those are not people walking around holding your steak. Stakeholders are anyone involved, anyone who benefits from or is affected by your business. A stakeholder could be the general public. Let's say if you're a gas station, stakeholders for you would be the people in your area, the people who pass through, the people who supply the gas to you, the people who maintain your pumps, all your employees, all of those, and your investors.
So you consider all those stakeholders?
They're all stakeholders because they are all affected by the business. So when you involve all stakeholders in your company planning and you survey your suppliers, you survey your vendors, you survey your employees, you have safe ways for them to express their opinion about you and what's working and not working so that they don't fear retaliation.
Right.
Some companies, if you speak about somebody, you're gone, and that's stupid because how are you going to grow and make positive changes if you don't listen?
Yeah.
If somebody's too cold, you turn the air down. If somebody's too hot, you turn the air up. I mean, what's the big deal? So you have to change with the times to the point where you're at least attempting to progress and make things better for you and for your stakeholders. So a company's not just the owner. It's everyone who's involved and everyone who's affected by it. And the good thing is that it's never a waste of time or money to engage your stakeholders, to sit down and plan, and to brainstorm with people that you trust, and make an actual good, solid plan to get from point A to point B. You will never miss that money. It's always a good idea. And way too often, companies don't listen to all stakeholders. They just look in the mirror and think they're the ones who know everything. And
they'll end up failing.
Well,
not necessarily.
They could fail, or they could just creep along, or I guess in a this crazy upheaval infested world, they could be wildly successful, but still, it's not as successful as they could be
Right.
if they embraced the power of the stakeholder inclusion. So yeah, that's just an incredible type of thing to do. It's like being introspective. I mean, if you never look at yourself, you never analyze yourself at all, and you just exist, then how do you know whether you're progressing or not?
Yep.
All right, well, that's kind of the time we've got now. I think it's coming up on half hour.
That's what it looks like.
See you next week.